Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about the brand new Sisley Blur Expert Powder. This is something that you guys have been asking me to review for quite some time, and I've been playing with it for like the past couple of weeks, and it's taken me a while to kind of develop a concrete opinion about this powder. Every time I used it in a different way, I felt like I got different results. So we're going to get into my full review on this powder. We'll also be applying it to my face. I'm going to start with, applying it to half of my face so we can see a difference. We'll go through all of it. So let's go ahead and jump right in. The packaging of the, let me wipe it off because it's really dirty. The packaging of this powder comes in a really beautiful metallic finish compact. I was surprised when I opened up the box. I was kind of expecting some kind of funky animal print, which is what they usually have on a lot of their products. But no, we have a very sleek kind of like gunmetal chrome finish. So very modern, very sleek, comes in regular Sisley box. And I believe this powder, it's not limited edition. It's part of the regular line. And as far as I understand it, when they first released this, it like sold out everywhere immediately. But I saw that it's like coming back in stock. Most major retailers like Saks and Neiman Marcus, and even on the Sisley site, I believe. I'll link everything down below with more information also, because I'm sure I'll forget something. So before we apply, what I want to do is just kind of quickly go over how Sisley describes this powder, what the claims are, all that kind of stuff. So it's a fine perfecting smoothing veil of powder. It illuminates and beautifies the skin. Light matte HD complex ensures an equally matte and ultra luminous finish. Its transparent and ultralight texture melts into the skin and creates an enhancing veil for a second skin effect with a very natural result. No powdery finish. A transparent universal shade that complements all skin types. So in terms of usage tips, it says use with a large brush, and they recommend the Sisley powder brush or retractable kabuki brush. Apply it all over the face. For more coverage, focus on the areas that need blurring. This whole thing. May be used on bare skin on its own or after a primer for a luminous, fresh, and natural result. May be applied after foundation to perfect the makeup. May be used during the day for touch-ups to mattify, smooth, and beautify. And then some of the claims are it acts instantly like an Instagram filter, visibly smooths wrinkles and fine lines, smooths texture, reduces the appearance of pores, mattifies, illuminates, all these things. So Sisley's making some very big claims about this powder. What I'm going to do is kind of review this powder as I applied it, because I've applied this powder in so many different ways, and I feel like I have found the best way, or the way that I like to use this powder. And I will admit, I have not used this powder just over a primer or on its own. That's just not something I would do. Powder is something I use after I've put foundation down to kind of set it. And because I have dry skin, and even though I don't find this powder to be drying, it's just not something I'm gonna do. It's just apply powder over like my bare skin. So I have the Tom Ford Soleil Flawless Glow foundation down. I wanted to make sure that I put like a fairly glowy foundation down so that the camera would pick up the difference between my powdered and unpowdered side. I also didn't want a foundation with too much coverage because I wanted you guys to see if this powder had any kind of like additional coverage. So this powder, let me just show you what it looks like on the inside here. This powder is one of those really interesting powders. And when I first opened it up, I wonder if you guys can see that. You can probably see it in the pictures online too. And there's like no like powder kick up. It's just a very interesting like non-powder kind of powder. So there is a swatch of it on my finger, and I think you guys can probably see that on the back of my hand. I definitely have more success picking up this powder with a stiffer kind of brush. When I use a soft brush, something like a squirrel hair brush, and I brush it across this powder, you can see, I pick up some powder, but really just not that much. So the brush that I've liked using with this powder is one that has a stiffer kind of bristle, and this is goat hair, and this is the Artist 20-10 brush. And what I'm going to do is just swipe it over the top of this powder, and it picks up a bit more powder than the squirrel hair. And then you can see in the pan, there's like no powder kick up. So the formula of this powder is very, very interesting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this brush, and I'm going to pat and kind of swipe it over my skin. And that's generally how I apply setting powder, but I'm going to just do it to this side of my face. And again, I'm going to just pat and then swipe. I like to make sure that I have any excess powder kind of off my face, again, because I have pretty dry skin. So there is a light, very, very light dusting of it on this half of my face. And that's normally how I use powder. I like to use just a very kind of small amount. I like to just kind of press and kind of like swipe it away. And so when I first used this powder, this was the result that I got. And I thought, okay, like it looks nice, but I really didn't know what like the big deal was. So, you know, I lightly dusted it all over my face. I wore it around that day, and it didn't seem like it changed much. It didn't seem like it was, you know, like improving the texture or blurring my skin or doing anything that it claims that it does. And I thought, well, that's really weird. You know, this powder sold out, and I love Sisley products. They really do their research. So basically, long story short, after trying different application methods, the next day I pretty much just dusted more on, and I thought, okay, again, it still doesn't really do much. So what I've come to find, my favorite way of applying this powder is first laying down that light layer, like I just did, and then taking my Sonia G Face One brush. This is the one that I generally reserve for finishing powders because I like kind of buffing it in. But what I like doing is picking up the powder, again, after I've laid down just a light layer, and really getting like a good amount of powder on here, and then pressing it into my skin. Now I've tried buffing it. I feel like what I'm doing is just kind of buffing away any of the effects it has. But when I press it into my skin, all of a sudden I get this veil. And I wonder if you guys, I really hope you guys can see it, because in real life, it really looks like an Instagram filter on my skin. I bet you guys can see how my skin is mattified, but do you still see how there's that like little bit of luminosity? It really is a very interesting powder. So when I have continuously just kind of brushed more product on, I didn't really like the result. When I just kind of buffed, or even when I just kind of like pressed the powder down, I didn't really like that either. So the way that's worked for me is like brushing a light layer down, kind of just setting the stage for it, and then pressing a good amount of the powder into my skin. And that's what kind of gives me this really nice blurred effect. Now, I think I've been talking long enough to also show you that this powder oxidizes on my face. Do you see how much more pigment I have on this side of my face versus this side of my face? So when they talk about it being translucent and kind of a universal color, I have to say I disagree. Like, look at how much darker this side of my face has gotten versus this side. I don't necessarily mind it, but this is definitely not a translucent, transparent, universal kind of color. But this definitely oxidizes on me. And I have tried this powder over a number of different foundations. I want to say at least 4 different foundations, and it's done this every single time. All right, so now that you guys have seen like this comparison, I'm going to go ahead and apply the powder to this side of my face, and we can kind of continue talking about it. All right, now the powder is applied to my entire face. So I want to say that I definitely agree with its blurring claims. I feel like it really kind of blurs my skin. I feel like it really removes any sort of fine lines, any weird textures. It really kind of like softens the appearance of my skin. I really, really like the blurring effect. But this powder definitely oxidizes on my skin. I would love to hear from you guys down below if you have this powder, if this has happened to you. I do not necessarily mind a little bit of a deeper shade to my skin. I am fairly pale, but it was kind of, you know, shocking at first. I thought, oh, is that my foundation? I like wasn't sure for the longest time like what was going on. I kept thinking maybe like my foundation was old or whatever, but finally I realized that it is the powder. So you can see the difference there. So I will definitely continue to use this powder because I really like the effect that it gives my skin, but I definitely wanted to share this experience with you because it was so puzzling. I don't think, and not that I think this is like completely unheard of, but I don't think I personally have ever used a powder that has oxidized on my face like this. So it was definitely very confusing for me. If I use a lighter amount of this powder, I definitely won't see this much of like a color change, but then I also don't see the blurring effect. So I feel like there's a trade-off. So that is it for this quick review on the Sisley Blur Expert Powder. Please, please let me know down below in the comment section if this has happened to you. I am so curious to know if this has happened to anyone else. So anyway, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video.